Good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock. Let's make a start, shall we? Welcome to this evening's meeting of Scrutiny Finance Review Group. I'm told the induction loop is now operative. Members and officers, please remember to switch microphones on and to speak directly into the microphone and then to switch off after speaking. Reporting officers using Teams. We haven't got any, have we?
No, there's none.
No, none this evening. The meeting will be live streamed to the public, and a recording of the meeting will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. Any exempt or private items on the agenda, the live stream will cease prior to the meeting going into private. We have only one of those this evening, and it's only the minutes of an earlier meeting anyway. So, let's get on. The emergency evacuation procedure is follow me. I need to remind members to declare declarations of interest, either now or when a relevant item comes up on the agenda. Apologies for absence.
None received, Chair.
Anwar Malik is on his way. Apologies from him. He'll be late, but he shouldn't be long. Declarations of interest we've covered. Section 106 of the Finance Act. I guess we don't have any of those because we don't make decisions. No urgent business. No references from other bodies. Chair's update, only one thing I have to say. I think I did mention at an earlier meeting that Rob Roche and Dev Gopal were working on a revised reporting process for budget monitoring reports. They've completed their work. It's my fault it's been held up because I haven't had time to go through it as thoroughly as I would like to. So don't shout at them, shout at me. And I hope that the next report we receive, which will be Q2, will be on the new format. And I would then be really interested to hear from all the members individually whether they find it easier or not easier to use, because it's obviously capable of being amended if required. Okay. Off we go then. Finance updates. Have you anything, Dev, to say before we get on to the revenue budget monitoring?
No, Chair. It will be covered in so item 8 will be covered in item 10.
Thank you very much. Stage update. Who's going to give us? Is someone going to give us the update on the stage project, please? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Just a very brief update on the stage. Dialogue with the regulator is ongoing. I'll say that it is improving, but unfortunately we were asked for a extension of time for a decision on the stage. So the extension of time is until the 7th of November. So until such time, we were not going to have a decision from the regulator in terms of the submission for Gateway 2. So we'll have to wait until that. But the delays obviously have been noted from us to the relevant stakeholders involved, and we have also passed on the letter from the leader of the House on to MPs to know, how we feel about that progress. But on a positive note, I think they have addressed the concerns in terms of the dialogue that we've been having with them, and they've put forward some requests for information that we've been dealing with since July. So the dialogue is improved, but obviously we all know the issues that come with the process that we're facing with BSR, unfortunately.
Okay, we don't yet have a date for when they're going to give you a decision then?
No, unfortunately we don't, but the extension of time that they requested expires on the 7th of November, so the expectation is that we will have a decision by that date.
Maybe, yes, thank you. Yes,
Thank you. So how does this impact the levelling up? Because there's a deadline for that, because it has to be spent by 2026. So if we're going to get a decision by November, I can't see this project being completed by then. Or so how does this impact that level up funding?
Yeah, that's a good point. So we are talking to the Levelling Up Fund, so they are aware of the delays they're facing. At the moment, they're being relatively flexible with us in terms of the timeline. So it's not out of the realms we can continue as we are, but they are fully aware of the situation. But at the moment, there's nothing more until we have got a decision and we can firm up the program.
Are you saying that there is a possibility for an extension of that deadline?
Yeah, I don't know the mechanics of the funding itself, so forgive me if I'm not going to speculate in that format, but what I'm saying is we are in dialogue with them, and they haven't so far expressed, explicit sort of decision-making in saying, look, we'll be pulled or whatever. So we are talking, and they are aware of the delays, so I don't think we can speculate to say that because of the delay that that'll be pulled, but obviously it is a risk item that we are aware of.
Yeah, to me, I mean, if just talking is not good enough, but there needs to be a level of surety, because otherwise this scheme is deemed. So you will have another shortfall of £20 million. Where's that going to be? Where are you going to get that? So, there has to be some level of a concrete discussion. It's not just about informing them, it's about really having that serious dialogue, and who's having it. We need to know who's having it and what is the surety that that funding is not going to go away.
Councillor Latif.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to obviously a little bit concerned with the delay, and as we were aware, costs have gone up significantly. Inflation is nearly at 4% as well. So how much work has been done on mitigating the delay, and how much will it cost? Because at some stage, the project is just not going to be viable, as Councillor Aslam has alluded to that.
Yeah, so as you can appreciate, the delays have been ongoing, but they are not measurable in the sense that we know where the end date is. So measures are taking place in terms of evaluating how things like a rise of cost, inflation and so on are impacting the overall budget. At the moment, there's no change in the committed contract cost, so we're not seeing that being influenced by the delay. Obviously, there's ongoing costs to maintain the project running. Those are being calculated, and I can't say where that line stands, where the viability ceases to exist, but I can assure you that there are people constantly monitoring the costs and reporting them upwards as required.
Councillor Farouk.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I understand what you're trying to say. Could you give us an up-to-date on emails when you hear everything being done, finalized? Yeah?
Yeah, there is a circulation group and stakeholders involvement on the stage, and I would advise that if councillors are not on that particular circulation group, to let us know, either through myself on my email, or to Michelle Griffin, or even Roger Kirk, and then we'll make sure that the relevant people are updated as changes progress.
Anybody else? Okay, there's £20 million of time-limited government funding at stake on this project. And this is not the first time that we've been asked to agree to a delay in their decision. So there's no guarantee that they're going to stick to the new date any more than they have to the previous dates that they've agreed. What we can do about it, I'm not sure. Perhaps renew our appeal to the Chief Executive to take the issue up with LGA, seeking support from other local authorities who are affected, because there must be others affected. We can't be the only one. Are you happy for us to do that? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much indeed. And thank you for the report. Okay, I think we're moving on to the Q1 forecast outturn. Over to you, Dev.
Thank you, Chair. Just following from your comments earlier, you will see this report is in a new format. So the first, we've got just maybe 6 or 7 pages which capture the essence of the Q1, and the detail is in Appendix 1. So I know Councillor Frank is going through that, so I would welcome your comments as well, but Councillor Frank and Councillor Rose are going through that. And then any comments, we are going to work on the Q2. So if I get any comments from you, then I will be sort of including those as part of Q2. So the first sort of few pages on the report is very sort of concise, but it captures everything you will see in the appendices. So first is the first quarter. So although it's based on figures to June, it's a forecast for the year end. So based on what we know 3 months at that time, what that forecast underspend overspend looks like for the year. So it's a year forecast. And you will see in paragraph 2, right now there is a forecast for the net overspend of 6.6 million. And that one of the main reasons is when we prepared the closure for last year, 24-25, after the budget, when I did present the outturn, there was quite a significant forecast outturn overspend in the fourth quarter. And that is reflecting in the first quarter because the budget was not based on that revised forecast. I will take you through the detail, but one of the things I would like to point out to members here on paragraph 5 is currently, as you are aware, we are going through fair funding review, and the fair funding review will be, as the paragraph said, will be expected to conclude by end of 2025. So we're expecting end of November or beginning of December, but potentially Luton should benefit from that fair funding review because of the level of deprivation and the low tax base and the need, but whether it will be enough to offset all the pressures which you are going to face in the next 3-4 years, the whole local government is going through quite a difficult financial challenge. But we hope that we should have some upside from that fair funding review. So that just gives you a bit of early sort of comments on what fair funding review might mean for Luton Borough Council. Now on the table you will see we've split the forecast overspend, and you will see the 3 main areas, 4 main big areas are the demand-led services. Paragraph 7 gives a bit more detail, and adult social care, and you will see his first bullet point says is driven by demographic growth, mental health needs, transition from children's services, and long-term support for disabled adults. Children's services, again, demands-led, and high-cost placement budget, especially for children with more complex needs. And here there is an increase in the market. So we know there is market, there is quite a market which drives the cost, and it's controlled by quite a group of companies. So that's an area which central government has got some concerns, is the price and the cost for those sort of complex needs placement has grown significantly over the years. I'm glad you know that housing, we used to have quite a big overspend over the years. That is much more under control. The number from BNB has come down significantly, and forecast is by the end of this year, you won't have any families in BNB, which is very good. And there is property which we acquired, so moving people from BNB and also moving people from expensive 90-let. So that has contributed, and there is more prevention taking place. There is more helping families to stay in the current accommodation, providing rent deposit, providing support. So there's a number of schemes which you will see the results now. In housing temporary accommodation is more or less breaking even. So those are the main areas. I think one of the things you will see in inclusive growth, although there's an overspend, but it's made up of underspend in the inclusive growth, but there is an overspend, forecast overspend on a project Buckle Close in the region of 2.7. There's detailed work which is taking place, and there is a detailed report which will be prepared and to look into and what are the lessons learned from that forecast. But this is a forecast overspend. They're going through a process of appointing a new contractor, and what that cost will be then, hopefully, once I get those figures, I'll be updating the members. I think paragraph 8 goes quite a bit in detail in main risk, but one of the biggest one you will see in the first bullet point is demand-led. Okay, I think members have made that is how you're managing. So you will see TA is a good example how demand is being managed, and adult social care, there is a forecast overspend, but there is a 1.3 million in-year deficit recovery plan to address those. So work is being taken place to manage the demand, but we used to have quite significant overspend, but those are managed, and there is more work which is being done in order to manage those. I think on page 11 on top, the second bullet point, you will see deficit recovery plan. So the budget was based on a deficit, a planned savings of 10.7 million. You will see significant amount, 8.5 million is being delivered. So that's quite positive. But the pressure is what is coming out of the system. And corporate, if I can touch on those, the slippage on the capital program, and as you've heard earlier, the stage is the biggest project. So that's what is causing. And in terms of temporary accommodation, we are buying. Right now, you will see there's around 60 properties which are buying. There's Wenlock, there's Wesley House. There's significant amount of investment in order to reduce that number of temporary accommodation. But there has been some delay in the first quarter, but right now, there's quite 11, 12 properties already bought. And those are the things which are plus Wenlock and everything. So there's a quite an urgency to acquire properties in order to move people and families which living in B&Bs not, so moving those. So right now, the aim is to move everybody on more permanent accommodation. As I said, paragraph 10 says mainly is because of the TAPS and the state project. At this stage, because it's first quarter, you will see paragraph 10 talks about contingency. So we don't allocate contingency at this stage. We will try to manage the budget within through a deficit recovery plan. And when it comes to quarter 4, quarter 3, then we'll see we start to allocate contingency if required. But right now is important to have. And you will see first quarter, we try to get it as robust as possible. Previously, we used to have a bit of a light touch in quarter 1, but because what we've experienced in prior year at quarter 2, we spend a lot of time officers to get quarter 1 as close as possible. So hopefully quarter 2 won't bring surprise, but that's the best figure at that time. Public health is currently forecasting more or less breaking even. HRA is forecasting an underspend of 423, and the trading account is forecasting a surplus, but the Luton Traded Services paragraph 16 has experienced a shortfall, and that's why we're looking at those projects where there is some shortfall of income. Dedicated school grant DSG, at this stage, we don't report much because we're working on that, and DSG is quite complex, so right now there's no variation on DSG. There's paragraph 18 to the rest talk about a little bit about the financial implication and those areas where as a section 1 officer I have to give some assurance because it's important that we look at the 25-26 because that will be used as a basis for 26-27 budget. And then on next page, Chair, paragraph 14, you will see there will be, on paragraph 25, we say there should be including detailed financial implication and strengthened recovery plan will be brought back to executive. So when we come to quarter 2, and there's further work, we're discussing how we are going to try to recover that deficit. So that work is continuing and will continue. And that's what in front of members here. And if I take you back to the recommendation, which is on page 7, it states the overspend is 6.6. HRA talks about HRA. Third is about identifying savings, both. But as I've mentioned, out of 10.7, nearly 9 million of savings have been built in and being delivered. Capital program is, we just had the discussion earlier, we're trying to see much more in terms of how we profile our capital bid. So we try to be a bit more realistic. So if you got a project, we say, okay, how realistic is for it to spend? Previously, I think we are trying to say we'll spend it a bit earlier, but there's a capacity, so now we are being a bit more prudent in terms of profiling those projects, be it IT projects or be it any projects. And then recommendation that we'll have to continue monitoring and report progress back. Hopefully Q2, we are already working on P5 and we will be able to look at P6 and bring the Q2 report here. Thank you. You've got very detailed explanation on Appendix A, and that takes you very much in detail. But the first part of the report covers will capture 90% of what is in the appendices. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dev. Questions? Okay, yeah, where do we start then? Assam Khan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for that report. And I'm pleased to see that the housing overspent is being reduced, and I'm pleased that some of the recommendations that we passed have been accepted and adopted, and that's having an impact on that. But your spend on children's services and adult social care still remain very high, and that's what's really sort of having a big impact on the budget. You say that you have a deficit recovery plan to address some of the demand on adult social care. So can you explain a little bit more about that? Is that more procurement? Is that, you know, how is it that you're trying to address that? What is it that you're going to intervene with is going to bring that pressure down?
Thank you. That's a very good question. So this is we're in constant discussion, so I will just report to you, okay, what departments are working on. So it's everything, yeah. So coming back to procurement, yeah, there is a piece of work which is happening, how we can better procure. There is a piece of work happening with ICB, reviewing those cases where the ICB is making their fair share of contribution. And either way, if we have to make more contribution, that is happening. In terms of looking at the placement, in terms of looking at what they call whether somebody is getting the same care twice, they call it double, or I don't know the technical terms. There is in this report, there is mitigation plan you will see in the appendix on adult social care, and it's in paragraph, it takes, yeah, quite in detail what is happening. But the point which I'm making here, it's here, paragraph 22, mitigation plan, okay? Cost tracker, great understanding of cost drivers. So it's procurement, it's looking at demand, it's looking at prevention, looking at contribution, and the other thing we are looking at about the debt which you can recover as well. So all these things is happening jointly. It's not just one thing, but all these things. And the more we are looking at in terms of the demand and trying to get better at forecasting what demand, one of the things is when children transit from children's services to adults understand they're working closely now. So understand how many sort of transit and when they're going to transit and one sort of, yeah. So it's much more joint up approach, working with housing as well, and to say, okay, where we can sort of place between housing and adult social care when they've got complex needs, working with supported living, because supported living is an area. So it's much more system-based approach for the council, all officers working together, because adult social care, children, housing, all three are quite linked. So back to your question, yeah, we are looking at every area of the budget.
Chair, sorry. I agree with you because being in the NHS, I do understand there are sometimes 4 services turning up some of the residents at one time. So there's a lot of duplication. So that needs to be addressed. The second part is, if you look at NHS, probably received more funding than any other department for the past 10 years. I don't think that we're getting fair share of what the local government should be getting in terms of adult social care. So we need to look at that in very detail. So I'll be interested to see the report, both on duplication as well as whether we're getting fair share for our money or not. And thirdly, when you're talking about forecasting now, are we talking about now you're much more aligned and there's some kind of IT system which is going to help us to forecast better? Because in the past, forecasting wasn't accurate, it was far from accurate. So are we saying from now, everything is integrated when it comes to reporting and we're going to have a better visibility in terms of projected spend? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so the system was there. So whether it was from the feeder system or whether you did on Excel, so you can do it. But what was a bit missing is whether the information which was going on the system was timely and was robust. So whether when there was a review being done, whether that review was capturing all the costs at the timing of those costs, and then was getting on the system with the code control, because there you can do the forecasting. So now we are tracking in adult social care weekly. So weekly, the number of, we're not producing massive line of figures, but 4, 5 big one, and the average cost per month as well. So department are getting weekly, and based on that, they are able to say, okay, what that trend is saying, and based on the experience of department, we're trying to forecast that. We've compared with what was last year, that's the point you've made is Q2, we had a big, hopefully that will be addressed. So we are much better at those, and there's much more involvement, department and finance working much more closely to make sure that all those figures are validated. Now, last quarter in 24-25, the last quarter there was quite some backdated. So backdated 6 months, 9 months backdated means some of the providers were coming to say, okay, we reviewed that, but it has not. So those things we are going into all backdated is coming for yeah. So the 6 months, I've asked a question, okay, in these 6 months, are you expecting more backdated, which will come? The answer is no, it's more robust now. So we can improve more on that, but those things which we've learned from that, so the council officers learn from those things, and are really addressing those to make sure that the system is quite robust. So we've got the system, we've got the process. Now, of course, we can do more, so we're getting even better at that. But I'm being reassured by department. I do ask question with my finance department. I do challenge. And one of the things we are looking at the areas now in terms of debt, what the profile of the debt, and what the profile of the debt looks like going forward. Is it upward trend, downward trend? What impact the provision for bad debt? So that's next thing they're working on. So getting much more closer, much more sort of validating quite a lot of things. Yeah, there might be a bit of budget which is 20,000 or 200. We'll capture them as and when, but the big line items we are making sure we're getting it. On children's services, coming back to the point you made, is much work happening. So there's further work doing on the systems, and that will help us. And which is important is when we are going to prepare 26-27 budget. Coming back to your point is whether we say here's a demand for 6 months, is it linear or is not linear, and what we're going to do that. And then it's also important when you have a forecast, you say that's, if you do nothing, that's the growth, but how are you going to intervene to manage that growth, and that's demand. And it's quite complex. I'm not expert in you know much better than I do. But yeah, I think it's compared with last year and the year before, I think this year we are saying, oh, we can't. Because it's very difficult to predict demand, but when it hits you, like one child, when it hits you, you probably are aware. Sometimes we can talk 500,000 and just these are the swings. Yeah, thank you.
On borrowing, I remember a couple of years ago, there was a concern raised that for us, borrowing more money probably wasn't recommended. So you're talking about borrowing another 80 million. Do we have the appetite as a council to borrow more money? And
yeah, so I'll just put in context, yeah. And we do get a lot of FY in terms of borrowing, and I think there was an article recently about level of borrowing. So the councils, every council has got own strategy, own borrowing. Some council has got 2 million borrowing, 3 billion borrowing. Some have got 500,000. Our borrowing, if you look at it, reaching in the region of 800, yeah. And the main is the investment in the airport, 500 million, yeah. So got 300 million. So, and the reason we borrow is 3 types. One is for our day-to-day, the business as usual. So if we are acquiring waste vehicles, we'll borrow. And that is paid by council taxpayer. So the council tax will pay for that borrowing. So when we do investment in IT, those are the things is what we call investment in our services. Then the second type of borrowing where we call it invest to save. So the like of TAPS, the like of Stage is one of them. There's unfortunately there has been delay on those, and as the chair mentioned, a lot of council, a lot of business are struggling to get this approval for business building services. So those are the areas where TAPS is invest to save. So when we're investing, and you will see the temporary accommodation cost has come down significantly, the gap, which was the overspend. And when we invest, we make sure there's a return on that investment. Yeah. So if you have somebody in bed and breakfast, then that is costing us already in the revenue budget, and you buy properties, we put those families away from, that pays for itself. Then there is a third type of borrowing where is the loan to subsidiary companies and debentures. And those, when we provide loan, it comes to FRG, it goes to executive, it's called the full council, it's a robust business case behind those borrowing. Now, in terms of capacity, whether we've got capacity, the borrowing goes to full council for approval. So we go through FRG, we go for executive. So if there is a request to borrow 30 million for a fifth TAPS, then that will go through the process. Once the council approves, then officers will deliver with it done. So there will be a report you will see coming next item about treasury, so I can talk a little bit. So capacity depends on what is driving that borrowing. If there is a borrowing for invest to save or commercial properties we've stopped buying.
Is this borrowing
Yeah.
in a form of a loan to LAL?
The LAL we stopped lending. This is for TAPS and Stage. Yeah. So main is for those two projects, and those projects have been approved by the council. So we are borrowing within the approval limit. Yeah.
I think Councillor Fry was next.
Thank you, Chair. I've got quite a number of questions, so if you do want to stop me at any point, Phil, I'm happy to come back to them if we've got time. My first point is the deficit recovery savings. Can you give me a little bit more information about where they're coming from, please?
We try to, you will see, we try to differentiate between savings and DRP, okay? So when we prepared the budget, we had a list of savings in the region of, I said, around 10.7 million. So those are savings, and what we do, we reduce the department budget. So they've got a budget which is already reduced to deliver those. Then in year, if there's overspend, over and above what we put in the budget, then you say this is the additional deficit which is being reported in year. So we'll have to say we have an in-year deficit recovery plan. So adult social care, you will see on the table, you got 1.3 million. So if you look at adult social care, in the budget, they had a savings of, I don't know, in the region of maybe 3 million to deliver. But on top of that, they're reporting 2.1 million of overspend, and they are saying the new deficit is 1.3 million. And those are the things which we are saying is they're looking at the placement, we're looking at the procurement, we're looking at the cost of services provided, and that will deliver a savings of 1.3 to make sure we recover the deficit which is reported in year.
Thank you. So might lead quite nicely into the next question then. On point 3 on the background, which is on page 8, you talked about various unforeseen pressures. Could we understand what those are and whether or not they're going to be, how much they're going to impact?
Yeah, so the pressures, I think you will see by and large, like inclusive growth, although they are quite very, very important services like waste collection, those are a bit manageable. The pressures normally are demand-led. So first, adult social care. Yeah. So adult social care is the number of people requiring service or mental health or residential placement. Those are going up because there's an aging population. Yeah. And then the other thing is the cost as well, because as the demand goes up, there's not many providers, then the cost. And especially in children's services, what has been reported, the cost has gone up because it's very, very specialist. And when you have to provide care to children and with very special complex need, then there's very few providers who can provide. and it's a bit they will quote a price, and if you don't, then there's no other alternative. So sometimes, as this morning there was mentioning, some can cost 10,000 per week. That's how much it's costing. So what we've noticed is over the last 3-4 years, in something which is quite well publicized, and central government is looking at that, is the supply market, whether there is a reason to intervene in order to make sure the cost has come down. But hopefully in the temporary accommodation, the pressure is still there, because with cost of living and interest rates still being high, there is the rental market rent is going high. So people will still be approaching the council, but at least that area is much better managed, and investing in acquiring properties have helped to reduce those costs, like expensive costs like B&B and night to let.
Okay, thank you. So on page 9 of the report, which was point 7, the main areas of volatility, what are the risks around the 1.145 million forecast savings? Our report, it's the point 7, bullet point 1.
7.4.1?
Yeah.
Which page is that,
The
please?
main areas of volatility and forecast overspent.
It might help, actually, if we knew the paragraph number.
Yeah, it says paragraph 7.
Yes.
Bullet point 1 on the adult social care. You've got includes 1.145 million forecast
Yes.
savings to be delivered. I just wondered what the risk was around that.
Yeah, so in terms of when we prepared the budget as part of the 10 million savings, the bulk of the savings in adult social care has been delivered, and which we said includes 1.4 million savings to be delivered. So the bulk they've delivered, there's 1.1 still to be delivered, plus the 1.3 they are saying they are going to deliver. So some of the areas, I think there is a detail in the appendix. Let me just find those details if I may. So paragraph 22 gives you much more detail on adult social care, and so it says here, you will see second bullet point is, so far adult social care has achieved 1.14 of its 1.5 deficit recovery plan targeted. So, and then there's identified a further 1.3 million. So those are the things in adult social care that achieving. So there's another 6 months, so hopefully we will try to deliver all those savings.
Yeah, but what I was specifically asking for, what risks are there to those savings? So will we be able to meet them?
So the risk is always when you deliver the savings, is the risk is in terms of you deliver the savings, but more demand gets into the system. And that's what we are seeing here. Like at about 10.7, I think nearly 9 million has been delivered. But what happened is a bit like you try to manage the savings here, but more demand gets into the system. Now, there are a couple of savings where it might be high risk, and those things will be highlighted, but the bulk of the savings out of the 10.7 has been delivered.
Okay, thank you. And the final bullet point on item number 7 is around Buckle Close. What is the performance excluding Buckle Close? Because it says that it makes up most of the costs. What can we sort of just make it clear what the actual Buckle Close cost is?
Yeah, so on this one, you will see I've mentioned we are going to bring a detailed report. Yeah, so this is something which right now the cost has been spent, the project is on hold. The officers are looking at a new main contractor, and once we've got that cost, then a detailed report is happening and lessons learned. What are the things, what are the issues, what caused this 2.7, and those are the things officers are working on that. There is some initial comments which I've seen, but we've requested, and officers requested, and members requested for a full report, and that full report will look into the detail, and then we can bring it back, because it will be reported to executive. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You've already mentioned adult social care, and obviously we've got on paragraph 8, we've got the issues around the same transport as well, which obviously we've had to make enormous savings on. Are we going to be doing any reforecasting on that? Because I've noticed that, you know, with the cost of living going up, petrol going up, wages going up, are we going to meet those savings?
You're absolutely right. And that's one of the things probably is temporary accommodation, homelessness, a good example that council managed to get control of that. Sand transport is another area. A lot of work has taken place, a lot of work is happening, and you will see sand transport, there was a 700,000 of savings that is being delivered. And exactly the point you made earlier is you might control on one hand, but on the other hand, your the interest rate is high. Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on those, but sand is an area over the years we had quite significant overspend, and that's another area is within control. So 4 areas where there was adult social care, children, TA, and sand. Yeah, 2 of those areas we are not reporting any overspend forecast as based on what we know right now. But those 2 areas, adult social and children, is the areas we are making progress on those. Yeah.
I've got a couple more questions if you're happy for me to answer them at this stage. Thank you, Chair. Paragraph 11, the additional 18.57 million budgeted expenditure. Will the capital projects be rolling over to 26/7 forecast? And will the PMO take ownership of capital project reporting?
Yeah, very good question. So I think there was sometimes what we're trying to get into is, I normally am saying to all officers now, your Q1, we don't have to wait Q2, because by the time we wait Q2, if it's stable condition, then Q2 fine. But right now it's so volatile, everything is volatile, I said Q1 has to be robust. So, but for capital, with ARCs for Q1, there was some projects up to 18 million, we didn't get sort of a robust sort of return. So Q2 we are capturing everything, but we've assumed that those where we haven't received return, they will be spent. So we took a cautious approach. Now if 18.5 of those is to be reprofiled, which we'll capture in Q2, you're absolutely right, some will be reprofiled in 26, 27. And right now, even this morning, I had the list of all the capital bids for 26, 27, so it's quite timely, 25, 26, the latest Q2 on P5, and the 26, 27, and then we'll bring all these as part of the budget process. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My final question is on paragraph 12 on borrowing financing. Why is the requirement there so high? And in that year, are we going to, for the capital requirement, will that reduce due to programme slippage?
Is it on paragraph 12 you're saying?
Paragraph 12, yeah, despite the slippage.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so borrowing requirements, when you say borrowing requirements is when you look at stage the big project, 120 million. TAPS in the budget 25, 26, we set aside 30 million for TAPS and 10 million if you have to build some residential sort of in terms of adult social care. So if you look at stage TAPS, we're talking about sort of significant borrowing, yeah. But as I said earlier, bulk of this borrowing is for investment. For the business as usual, on average, you get maybe 15, 20 million. Or those to do with vehicles, or investment in highways, or investment in IT. So it can range between 10 to 20 million. But when it goes to 100 million, then it's the big projects. And you will see in terms of a stage, yeah, although there is delay, but that's quite a project, which, as Councillor Khan mentioned, we've got 20 million. So when we started, it was good, but right now, because of delay, which is way, way above our control, and coming back, we are highlighting to in fact, our MPs are getting involved as well. So those are the ones which are saying. So it's not that we are borrowing 100 million for service, that level of, it will be high, but for those investment projects, yeah. So we do highlight it, but as I said, if you take for a unitary authority with a borrowing level of going to 800, and when you take our commercial properties, 110 million, TAPS, we are probably 60 or 70 million. So when you take those, the borrowing for the service itself is but it's manageable.
Councillor Latif, thank you for waiting.
Thank you, Chair. So, Dev, thank you for your report. I just want to bring you to page 35, paragraph 49, the transformation programme. So will the £2.8 million spend really give us £5.5 million worth of savings? Obviously, you know, what corrective actions are in place to do that?
So on the transformation program, this is something which, when you started the program, you will see there is 10.7 million of DRP and transformation savings. So the way we are tracking this is twofold. One is when we're investing in external consultant and what those savings are delivering, and then part of the transformation, our DRP. So when you look at 10.7 million of savings, 9.6 delivered, this is transformation, but quite a lot of these is officers are delivering at business as usual. So those areas where we're investing, we're saying, okay, that's where we're looking as a return. So those is being monitored. I think Q2 I'll bring the report is very detailed, but Q2 we're getting an update on where we are on those savings where we are investing. So this is a project is supposed to be invest to save. So when we're investing, we are going to generate savings. So that's, but the whole transformation captures savings where we are investing, invest to save, plus DRP, which is normal. Like TA, savings from temporary accommodation is business as usual. We say, department, you've got to deliver those. Yeah.
Anybody else? Councillor Shaw first, then.
Is on page 23, bottom of the page, Pulse 16 special needs transport. At our surges now, that is probably taking over housing now, the amount of people that are coming forward for it. Down here, it says that people are expected to pay out of the supported, not the supported living, personal budgets. But the personal budgets aren't covering the special needs transport. When will we see a report back about the impact it's having on Pulse 16 special needs pupils, what are sent to colleges outside the borough, what savings were achieved, and even more important to me, the amount what have had to drop out because of this council's decisions.
This is, I will take it back to the service, yeah, because it's very much service. So if I'm okay, I will liaise with Councillor Shaw exactly what, and I will liaise you. So I made a note here, but I will take this back to the service and then by email respond to everybody. If that's okay, Chair. Yeah.
I hope it gets taken back quick, Chair, because it's actually happening now as we're sat here. But the worrying part about it, I know it's not to do with finances, that councillors have been excluded from the appeals process. That is really worrying. Yeah.
Which paragraph, Councillor? So just tell me which paragraph is it? Paragraph 23?
Paragraph at the very bottom of the page on 23, special needs, SEN,
Oh, page,
transport.
yeah, page 23, yeah, page 23, yeah? Page 23, yeah?
Yeah, the personal budgets do not cover.
Page 28. Page 23, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, and which bullet point is that? It's just
Very bottom of the
It's
page.
right at the bottom of the page,
right,
23.
transport. Yeah, okay, yeah, okay, so I will take it back. I will liaise with you, Councillor Shaw, to make sure I get everything, yeah.
Councillor Shaw, can I just intervene before you go on to your next subject? You've raised an extremely important issue. I've got it highlighted for me to raise as well. In view of the fact that the first appeal against the decision was actually won by the appellant, well, I'm not, yeah, okay. What I'm really coming to is I think the questions that Councillor Shaw is raising are not only important, but probably could do with some urgent attention. And if you're going to formally propose that we ask for that information, I'll second it, no problem.
I will formally propose that we ask the officers to justify with taking, how can you put it, not allowing councillors to take part in the appeals process after stage one.
Thank you. Councillor Hussain, are you coming in on the same subject or you want to raise something else?
I
Councillor...
recommended on the consultation, the part of the, this proposal at the consultation with the parents, that there was a one paragraph that the members will be on the appeals panel. For somewhere along the line, it disappeared somehow.
Thank you. Are we on the same subject? Go on then.
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Shaw's actually said, because obviously I was excluded from an appeal that one of my ladies did, although we did win the appeal. But yes, it's something that is very dear to my heart and something I'd like to see happen as well, please. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do you want to carry on, Councillor Shaw, with any other things you've got to say? Microphone, please.
Going through all of it, children's services, also inclusive growth and everything else, we make a big thing of underspending the departments for not having the staff. But what's missing, you've got to go through all the report to add up how much we're spending on consultants to fill those posts. And for 2 or 3 years now, this committee and other committees have been asking for a reason why we spend so much on consultants. What are wiping out a lot of the savings? Well, in 2 occasions, it's cost you more for consultants than you actually made by not having the staff in post. So I'd like to know how many consultants the council's playing, or how many agency staff the council's employing, and why, if we can't do it through our so-called partner in Gordon Street, why we can't employ our own personnel department to fill those vacancies. If we're so interested in investing to save, surely the best way to invest to save would be to have our own personnel department back to do all the job interviews and get those people into post.
So, again, I made a note, but one of the things I would say is like inclusive growth is a net savings from vacant posts. So if they spent on consultant, there wouldn't be a savings. So these are the posts that they haven't filled, but I will get a much more detailed report. In terms of recruitment, I can share my own experience in finance. You will see there's a significant overspend spent there. Some staff have left, some 38 years, 40 years, retired. Some staff, I'm talking about key middle managers, yeah, those finance business partners reporting to me. Some got jobs like a promotion, so they left. So I've got quite significant number of posts vacant. And we started a campaign. We've employed, I'm sure you hear, Pena. Pena is SIPFA Pena, very reputable recruitment agency in the central London. Yeah, ran a campaign and everything. Went in interview. Out of 4 or 5 posts which we advertised, we didn't appoint a single. Yeah, it's the market is so competitive, and not a single one. So now what I'm going to do is start under the campaign, try to see what else. I've got feedback from the agency, what else we can do. So I'm just sharing my experience, or the department probably, yeah. But in finance, I'm really struggling. I've got key posts, so when you employ agency staff, especially when you're talking about chief accountant posts, finance business partners posts, principal accountant posts, capital accountant posts, public health accountant posts, those are qualified. So when you recruit, and it's demand. And the other thing which is happening here, there is a big demand in local government right now. So some council who are struggling, most councils are struggling, but some councils are struggling more. So they are bringing more people in order to help. There is local government reform which is happening. So a lot of councils are going for local government reform. There's a demand for, I'm just speaking for finance people. There's a big demand. So it's very much, so as I said, it's 6 months now. I'm struggling. But hopefully I'm going to launch another campaign, and hopefully I should be able to. So coming back to your point, yes, I will get a list of agency staff and a list of why those agencies are being employed and how many consultants we're employing, so I will get those counselors. But I've just shared finance, I'm struggling. If you've got some good ideas or some friend who want to come and work in the finance department, please send me their CV, and I'm quite happy to look, yeah? And I'm struggling. Really big time. Yeah, thank you.
If a good chair, I don't think the answer's good enough. We've had it for an awful long time now, the same kind of answer. Just one example, in public health, you spent 519,000, or the council spent 519,000 on temporary posts, but the figures don't add up to me. For some reason, we only saved 228,000 on unfilled posts. So it's cost you £300,000 more, your own figures, by using those temporary posts. that £300,000 could do an awful lot. The next one is on the HRA at bottom of page 27, item 24. I know what's happening, we all know what's happening with these no-win, no-fee solicitors banging in their accounts at 4:30 on a Friday afternoon for emergency repair to be done. It's costing every council in the country an amazing amount of money. Why didn't we follow through to have an emergency repair team on duty from 5:30 on a Friday and working on a Saturday? Therefore, a lot of these no-win, no-fee claims would fall because they'll have been done within the 48 hours. Or is that too difficult for this council to think about?
Are you saying in HRA?
Yeah.
Yeah,
HR.
so again, I'll make a note, so these are service related,
Yeah,
I will
it's
take
such a
back to,
simple answer.
yeah. Yeah, because these are various services, because I don't want to give the wrong
Yeah.
answer, yeah?
That's all I mean, but I am concerned about the special needs transport, the amount of people it's affecting at the moment.
Okay, we'll deal with that before we finalise our... now, I'm sorry, I had another couple of hands over this side. I think, yes, you were first, and then Councillor Hussain.
Thank you. On the point of transport for children with SEND, I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time, about trying to get our own sort of in-house transport sorted, certainly since I've become a councillor, and it seems like we're not moving forward with anything. So do you think it's even possible that we will see some change by 2027 even?
I think I'll take this question back. My understanding is we've got an in-house and they're trying to bring more in-house now, but I remain to be confirmed. But there is an in-house. We've got bus, which we've got here. Maybe you're much closer to that. By my understanding, they are bus which the council run to provide those transport. Whether it's for SEN or for adult, I don't know. But I will take it back. My also understanding is there's some bus where they are trying to, they employ more staff in order to run those. But I may be wrong here. I'll take it back, yeah? So the point is, whether we are going to bring some of the external, they are external, we know they're external contractors, to bring everything in-house, that's your question. Okay, yeah, I'll take it back, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
because the costs are quite a lot. We're spending a lot of money, and that could have been sort of accounted for. But it seems like, I'm just looking at the report, year on year, we seem to be unrealistic with our projections a little bit, because every time we get quarter one, when we get quarter two, it's increased by a lot in terms of debt recovery. So are we not being realistic in terms of what we're projecting in quarter one for quarter two and what it... So, like, in terms of costing, it seems that our figures are not realistic.
I think the point I've made earlier, most council, quarter one, they used to take a bit of a light touch because you just finish your accounts, you just close your accounts, you go for your audit. So first quarter. Last year we did that, you're absolutely right, quarter two, the focus, yeah. This year, the team has put a lot of effort in quarter one. So hopefully, coming back to your point, SEN, whether there will be overspend, we had a meeting and all the things they're putting in place, and right now we are not reporting. So the first quarter, we did much more work than last year. So I've said to the team, we can't afford to a light touch and then quarter two, because these budgets are volatile. So we did much more detailed work on quarter one, I can reassure you. Whether quarter two will bring more surprise, but early indication, which we are looking at the two P4, it looks that we are that it's as robust as could be. So I've not seen in the last 2 months that suddenly the fluctuation we seen last time, I've not seen, yeah. And we are nearly close to end of September now. So I've not seen those major fluctuation yet, but fingers crossed, touch wood, let's hope it stays
I mean,
like that.
we really can't make that judgment. It's too early, because there are waiting lists for people to get sort of assessed and have their needs met and so on. So there are families out there that aren't accessing some of these vital services anyway. So again, we know that there is an increase of SEND children, especially since COVID. There's been a lot of delayed development between young people and children. So there is... I think we'll always play catch-up, I don't deny that. Yeah. But trajectory-wise, we could plan better if we are to coordinate some of these figures And when you're sort of doing your budgets, if it was I'm not saying you're not coordinating as well as you perhaps are, but I'm just saying that sometimes it's just a bit of a surprise that every quarter all we see is that the deficit is going up and we're having to make more cuts and residents are incurring more costs. So that's, one of my concerns. But I want to ask you a question about adult social care. So we're talking about debt recovery, we're talking about implementing a new strategy to make it more robust in terms of how we're recovering some of these debts. Is that going to affect, first of all, the quality of the services that we're providing for people? And also because we have got a CQC inspection pending, I don't think we've got a date of when that's going to happen yet. So, you don't want to go too tough in terms of debt recovery if it's going to impact the person negatively and then have a knock-on effect, and CQC then turn around and say, well, actually, you're going to be in special measures. So
Yeah, so first thing is, the two things, when we get significant fluctuations, okay, of the last 2 years, it has been a bit in terms of whether there was enough resources in the budget. So, because, and if I say last year, we put 19 million of growth. So when you come to a special educational need, the overspend which we were declaring, we provided additional money. Adult social care, so when we get to last year, there was 10 million in the budget, you will see, to just put the budget more affordable, yeah? Things which we couldn't have done it 3-4 years ago, but 24-25, in 25-26, government provided additional, and following this, council is high needs, high deprivation. So on that basis, 25-26 budget is much more robust in terms of resources. But the point you're making absolutely valid is areas like SEN, areas adult social care, area children, it's very difficult to predict, yeah? We are getting better and better. So children transiting from, as I said, children to adults is being tracked. Coming back to your point with the debt recovery, we always look at debt recovery, whether when we're recovering, whether the people can afford to pay. It's not just and it will be internally done. It's not just we take it and bailiff, no. It will be based on those can afford to pay. Then there will be a recovery plan as well. We don't just, so in the same way when we do council tax, when people are struggling, then we take make arrangement. So the debt recovery, the reason why I'm saying is the point you made is, after COVID did a lot of things. So COVID, there was a number of years where you can't even chase, you can't. And then after that, what happened is a lot of people started to say, okay, now we recover, the court can't take all these cases. So now the court are getting back. So we are catching up. So over the years, some of the debt are 2, 3, 4 years. So when we are catching up, we say, okay, let's go through now. Court, we are getting more hearing, and you've got more resources we've put now. So we're trying to, but I can reassure you that the council will take a very, very balanced approach, and we look at people's circumstances, those who can afford to pay or having plan, and those who can't afford to pay, they will be taken on based on what can be afforded or not. Coming back to your point, CQC, and when we had the inspection for children's services, the council invested in the region of 10 million in order to, so that has been significant improvement. And you will see in adult social care over the last 2-3 years, I think there's 30 to 35% more in resources going in that department, yeah? So you look at significant resources, when we council increased 2% precept, all goes in adult social care. So there has been significant investment, but the demand is not. It's just demand is, for some reason, is more complex, more people in health, mental health, all these. Supported living, I'll just give an example, that's in my area. That as well, so far, last year we've declared, I think, 3 million or 4 million of overspend. That is under control. So supported living, about 3 years ago, there was around maybe 250. Now we've got 1,400, yeah? So 1,400, and supported living, the same is DWP will allow an element, but won't cover everything. So supported living, temporary accommodation, homelessness, the housing, that's the council is picking up those. And when we talk about temporary accommodation, we rent property, some of them on private sector market rent, but what we get from DWP is the LHA rate in 2011, and that's 90%. So 90% of the local housing rate back in 2011, we get for current market rate we are paying. So just sorry, I'm being a bit, yeah, it's quite a challenge, yeah. But yeah, we're doing our best. TA is under control now, it's properly under control, trying to make progress in children and adults now, yeah.
Okay, now I've got in this order on my little list, Councillor Hussain, Councillor Latif and Aslam Khan. After that, I think we can probably wind this up because we've spent a lot of time on it.
Right. I think we in terms of the local accountability, I think you have, covered quite well. My question really is to you, is in terms of the national funding over successive governments, there has been a 1.7 billion in children services, shortfall for all the local authorities up and down the country. The similar figure is for the send transport. Are we looking at any sign from now, from the government? They gave some extra money last year on send, but they didn't give any extra in terms of children's services. Are there any signs now that we may be getting some sort of extra funding to cover this? Because we can discuss this all night, but unfortunately, there is no money from the centre coming in to be able to cover the growth. The demand is one child can cost up to £250,000 in a residential care. That's how expensive it is. So what I'm asking you is, are we likely to see that gap for us as well as, for us more likely, because we have a huge growth in terms of sand.
You're right, over the last 2 years, I have to say, when you see the budget, yeah, councils like Luton again, with high needs, deprivation, low tax base, on the final settlement, although it was just 1 year, councils like Luton, we get a slightly bigger share of the final settlement. So, and that's why last year you will see adult social care children saying we put significant growth to bring their overspend to practically nil. Going forward, the bit which I would say when I started about fair funding review, and the fair funding review, the final announcement will be made in sort of 30th of November. So again, Luton, based on needs, deprivation, and low tax base, we will be getting a fairer share of that. Yeah, some council, which I won't sort of name, but some council are losing 50, 60 million over 3 years. That's how much. Yeah. So there will be a transition where government will try to balance so that council can manage, but like Luton, we expect to receive a fair share. Yeah. So we'll have some money to address not only send transport, but to address adult social care, but that money will be enough, probably not, but at least, fingers crossed, I've done some high-level number crunching, and we'll be getting some money to go towards addressing the current sort of budget pressure. Yeah, so that is currently being prepared, and the other thing which is government, you will know that part of the guidance is we can increase council tax by 3% to 2%, so that's another option government is allowing. So, coming back to your question, yes, there will be some more money part of fair funding review. Well, I hope so, and I expect that. If not, I'll be surprised. But will it be enough? No. So that's why the work in terms of demand, how we can help people, how in terms of the social to stay in their own home rather than going in B&B or expensive placement, those work will have to continue. And not for now, for the next 3 years, because the final settlement will be a 3-year settlement, which is good, we can plan, and will be good because we expect to have a sort of, because Luton has been underfunded over the years, and that's official. We have been underfunded in terms of the settlement, so now we're getting a fair share of our funding. So that's how the formula works. There will be winners and losers. Potentially will be on the winner's side. Thank you.
Of the agency workers, I mean, we have a social work academy which had made, a huge difference in terms of the children's services. Is that situation deteriorated now, or is it improved? Are we able to retain those social workers in Luton, or are they, once they're fully trained, they're leaving after a few months?
So that has improved. So you invested, I think, nearly $500,000 in social academy, yeah? So right now it has improved. And this afternoon, the service director made a presentation in terms of the agency numbers has come down. But coming back to the point Councillor made, I will bring a list of where are those agencies and where the numbers has come down over the last maybe couple of years, yeah.
Councillor Latif.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make a point that it's a little bit frustrating, and I'm a little bit angry as well, that at the meeting earlier on for children's scrutiny services, there was £1.5 million worth of cut by the officers for SEND school provision, and we all voted against it, and members on the opposite bench voted for those cuts. So it's a little bit disappointing that I've got residents now coming to us and saying to us that their provision is being cut. So, you know, I certainly didn't get involved in politics to take money out of disabled children's pockets. So it's a little bit frustrating, Chair.
Thank you for that. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. Coming back to recruitment and retention, I was one of those people pushing for our own academy. Now, there is this mindset to recruit within local government, and I'm mostly on most of the panels, and this is how you are conditioned, and some of the younger councillors who probably don't have as much experience, and they actually go along with that idea. Banking is banking. Accounting is accounting. Why can't you have someone from the banking sector and elsewhere? Why could we not broaden our search and look for someone? And plus, AI now, the way things are going, you wouldn't need an accountant. So why can't we start looking at some of the systems? Secondly, we need to learn from NHS. So they used to spend a lot of money on locums, which are equivalent to consultants. So what they've done is the GP has stepped up to consultant's job, and a nurse has stepped up to a GP's job, and vice versa. Why can't we have our in-house training program, which is strong enough, which enables people, empowers people to do the job the seniors are doing? They should be a natural fit. So if the senior goes, that person should step in. And then we recruit more at a sort of junior level. So I think it's the culture and the mindset. If we really want to address that, we can. And since I've been a councillor since 2011, this has been, unfortunately, a sad story, because there's a lot of wastage. We don't need to spend that kind of money, because some of those people who would get onto your books deliberately don't, because they get paid more money as being consultants. So if we want to stop that culture, we need to change our practices and our mindset.
Yeah. Again, I will share my experience in finance, yeah. I come from the private sector before I joined local government. Yeah, I worked 15 years in chartered accountants firm, yeah. But I came from a chartered accountants where I was doing like non-profit organization and everything. In our application, we don't say you have to have local government. When I went for the interview, absolutely, there's people from banking, from cooperative, they applied, yeah. But there's a minimum requirement they have to. What we are finding now, even people from the private sector or from chartered accountants firm, we're not just getting the CVs, yeah. So I always say, if somebody can deliver 60% of the job, good enough. And I can train them the 40%. In 6 months, 12 months, we can train them. But sometimes you need to have a basic understanding. And coming back to accountancies, is in local government accountancies slightly different. So even when you look at the budget and your accounts is different, sometimes income is shown as negative, and private sector struggle to understand that. So you have to have but when I'm recruited like a chief accountant, they're supposed to prepare the council account, which run into 160 pages, with all the complexity of group accounts, subsidiary company, airport valuation. It's complex. So sometimes, yes, we can have a 6-month training. I have to train, I'm stretched. So we try to go with a certain basic. I always say to agency, If 60% is good enough, fine, I'll take them, yeah. So we don't, in Darren's team, I know you know Darren Lambert, quite 6 or 7 staff of team come from private sector. The recent recruitment, that's 3 or 4 come from private sector. So no, we don't, but we need some sort of minimum standard where we can build. So that's one. In terms of in-house, again, I share my example. I know you know Kanchan, with the head of internal audit. That's, we grow our own. Atika, who is now the service director of housing, come to the Atif, who has come. Darren, so quite a lot has gone. Right now, currently in my finance team, there's about 12 or 13 people being trained to become qualified. So sometimes it takes time for them to move that. We do and get absolute right. I am a firm believer in you grow our own. Yeah, we do grow quite most of the people who come. They come through. That's the best route. So we are growing. But suddenly now you've got 4 or 5 staff who's left 38, 40 years of experience. And that's, throughout the council, we've got same thing. If people, we do provide people the opportunity. Yeah. But I think it's becoming much more, it's just a market, and it's not just for finance. You will see those members who are in the audit committee, you will see our external auditors, audit firm are struggling. That's why there's a delay in signing of account, because audit firm are struggling in terms of resources. So I think after COVID, I think a lot of people took early retirement, and they said they had to work 3 or 4 years, they took a couple of years, and that is causing some sort of real pressure in quite a lot of areas. And you will see the wage inflation, which came out a couple of days ago, is quite high. It's much higher than. So there is, across the sector, private and public sector, there is a lack of experienced qualified people. Yeah.
It's surprising because there's been restructures across, even in the private sector. There are a lot of people who have even lost jobs. Whether everyone's sort of, getting on that ship and going abroad and trying to get away, I don't know. But you should be getting more people applying for jobs, because there's much more surplus. There's been much more unemployment in the country.
Okay. Several of the questions I was going to ask have been answered in the course of this discussion, but there are a couple that haven't. So I just want to bang those out first, and then we'll wind it up. In paragraph 4, you talk about rising costs like the national living wage. Can you tell us to what extent the increase in employer national insurance contributions is going to cost the council?
Two elements to that. So the element of national insurance contribution, which for our own employee, employed by the council, government did provide. We didn't get compensated for the whole loss, but I can get that figure. But what we are mentioning here, those providers. So when we have adult social care, the providers, they pay national insurance as well, and those costs have been passed over to the council. There's a 2 element to that. So I can get you the figures. How much is on the provider's national insurance and how much is for our own employees. Yeah, I can get you that.
So you're going to email them with
yes.
the figure
Yeah.
at expected additional cost for the current financial year?
Yes, I will give you for council. For council, I know by and not the figure, more accurate. For providers, I will give you that figure as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much. In paragraph 12, you tell us the council's airport company has fully drawn down its loan facility. That's not the case for Vauxhall Homes, is it?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I think you have seen the business plan of Vauxhall Homes, which came to FRG. So Vauxhall Home hasn't fully drawn down, but based on their projects, potentially they might require more loan. So Vauxhall Home, there is a detailed report which we are looking at, the business model of Vauxhall Home. That is another area the market has changed. It's much more expensive now to build. Yeah, I don't know, Councillor Shaw probably knows the figure better than I do, but it's very competitive now to that. So the viability of projects are under quite a lot of stress. So that's what we're looking at. So any additional requirement from Vauxhall Home and their business model will be built into in the 26-27 budget. If they require more loan, that will be. But the Vauxhall Home model and everything is being looked into right now, Chair. Yeah.
Okay, we've spent enough time on this. Let's move on. I'm going to propose three things. First of all, that we note the report and thank Nev for producing it. Secondly, in paragraph 3, we're talking about departments that identified what they call unforeseen pressures almost at the end of the financial year. I think departments that came up with unforeseen pressures in February or March, almost at the end of the financial year, should present us with a report explaining why they were so late in finding those problems. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, because it note and then an explanation of why things were so late being discovered. And the third thing then is a report on the questions raised by Councillor Shaw, but I need, if you could just quickly whiz through them again to make sure Angela understands exactly what you're asking, please.
To make a comment, Councillor Deese was a little bit wrong. Special needs education buildings, I thought there's at least 2 new schools going to be built. This is about post-16 special needs transport. My concern is, number one, that the council has not recognised the cost in people's transport budget plan or special needs plan for travel to the Sixth Form College in Dunstable or Dunstable College, which is where a lot of them are being sent to, that the council needs to put a proper appeals process in place where councillors can represent people at the appeals process, and thirdly, that we must take into account people's care plans when allocating the transport to make sure it's affordable for within the people's transport budget.
That sounds to me like a mixture of references to the executive and requests for additional information to be brought here.
It's just so it's so urgent, David, it's going on now, so wherever we need to go with it, we need to go.
Yeah, but I think what we need to see as a finance scrutiny body is the effects of the new policy on both the service receivers and on the council's budget.
Post-16 receivers, yeah. That report needs to come back here somewhere.
Now, have you got that, Angela? You understand what we're going? Okay, so are you all in agreement then? The explanation of late findings of overspends, the special educational needs transport questions, and there was one other actually, because there is a mention in the report that some departments have actually achieved almost all of the budgeted savings for the current financial year. I think we are pretty quick sometimes to criticise people. It might be an idea for us to say thank you to those who have done that.
Thank you.
And that's a report back on agency and temporary staff against filling those posts permanently and how many there was.
Okay.
Okay, Chair. Thanks very much for those kind words. I think in terms, you're absolutely right to pick on the unforeseen. Maybe it was, some of them was unreported probably because of the forecasting things. So, but I'll bring a full explanation to that. Thank you.
Okay, we're now on page 47. Before everybody gets too excited about the progress we're being made, I've been reminded that I didn't actually ask you to approve the minutes at the beginning of the meeting, so we'll come to that at the end. So page 47.
Yeah, so
and we're
thanks.
back to Dev again.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So this is a report which went to executive and to do with the outturn on the Treasury for 24-25. So it's coming a bit late, and we'll try to bring it a bit. Normally it should come together with the outturn report around July time, so a bit late on this one. This is basically, as we've discussed earlier, The council approved the amount we can borrow. The council approved the capital expenditure. And we as officers, we can borrow within those limits. And this is a report to say at the end of the year whether we did breach any of those limits. And when we discussed the outturn report for the revenue and capital, we did discuss like stage and taps, and these were reflected in this report. And that's why you will see is in terms of the borrowing and in terms of our CFO, which is capital financing requirement. So if I've got a capital bid for 100 million, my capital financing requirement allow me to borrow up to 100 million. And if I don't spend on the project 20, then my borrowing will be 80 million. So in summary, this report says whether we did breach any of those prudential codes as set out by the council. The answer is no. The other thing it says whether some of these projects have been reprofiled in 25-26. The answer is yes. Yeah. So that's in a nutshell, but I'm quite happy to take that report is going to an audit committee, and that report is going to full council as well, because the prudential code is approved by full council and you have to report to full council. There will be 6 months report will be coming to, again, FRG audit committee and full council. This is a mid-year report of the Treasury. Quite happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody?
Naughty one. The difference, Foxhall loan borrowing, paying back at 6% against what you borrow at, that 1%, if it went down to 5%, that 1% would put Foxhall loans into profit. Why can't you vary the rate you lend within the council to the different organisations?
Okay, I wouldn't go into too much because Foxhall Home is a private company. So in terms of our lending, I would just say if I have to borrow today for a 20-year loan, I'm sure you're aware the gilt government borrowing is very high. Okay, if I borrow today 20, maybe I will be paying above 6.4%. So if I borrow at 6.4 and I lend Foxhall Home at 5%, that's 1.4% somebody will have to pay, and that will become taxpayers. So the council can take a view, and that's what when we're reviewing Foxhall Home, you are aware, Councillor, so we're reviewing Foxhall Home model. These are the options which you are going to look at, yeah? Because Foxhall Home has got a sort of provide affordable home, so there is a social aspect to that. But this will be an executive council decision, but these are the options we're looking at, yeah? But from there are things like previously called state aid, competition law, so we have to make sure we comply that we don't borrow for the council at 6.5% and you give the company at 2%. That's absolutely our auditors will start to say, but we are subsidizing. But yes, there is a social value to some company and we are going to look at the interest. But just to say that although the base rate is coming down and the base rate has come down, but the government borrowing, government gilt is very high. And that reflects in terms of how much government is borrowing and the gap in the government budget. Hopefully, if that rate starts to come down, then that rate we borrow will be lower. But this is an option we are looking at, Councillor Shaw, absolutely, yeah.
The reason I asked the question is a general question instead of just about Fox.
Thank you very much indeed. So we note the report, I guess. Next business is the draft work programme, which starts on page 63. Does anybody have anything they want to add or remove or whatever? If not, thank you, Angela, for the report. Moving on then, I did forget to ask you to approve the minutes of the 18th of August meeting. I believe Councillor Fry's got a comment on those.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just noted that my name wasn't included on the list of attendees, although I was marked down in the minutes as having commented. Thank you.
Okay, with that amendment, are we happy with the minutes? Thanks very much. We now need to go into private, but to be blunt about it, all we're going to do is approve the private minutes of the 18th of August meeting. If no one's got any comments on it, we can do that now, but if you have, then we'll need to go into private before we do it. Happy with the minutes? Thank you very much for your time, boys and girls.